morning to all of you guys.
Good morning, Donna. We're so happy to have you with us today.
Well,
And she's
thank
going to be
you.
giving us a lesson on classic glass. Doesn't that sound fun?
Yes. Well, I'm super excited to be here, and I'm super excited that Suzanne has done all these recordings. I think this is a great thing. Not sure where I fit into this, but hey, here we go. And Patricia, I've met you. Letha, I think you're here to just make sure I do right. And the rest of y'all, it's very nice to meet y'all. So I am so excited to be here. But before I start, I want to go over a couple of things. I just want to invite y'all to the WOCP Art Institute. I'm actually teaching August 9th through the 12th in Oklahoma. And Cynthia Pennell, I'm going to move this so I can put this down here. Cynthia Pennell is one of the artists, Kathleen Feller, Peggy Riggs, and then I'm there. Let me pull that down so y'all can see it. That's Kathleen, and this is Peggy. So I invite everybody to come. I think it's going to be a great time, and anytime I'm involved, we're going to do something fun. And then I also wanted to tell y'all that I am also in charge of, not in charge, but I am in charge of all the programs for Texas teachers. And so in September at the 4-H camp in Brownwood, we have Ann Zitterkoff, and she is doing, let me get to that page, pine cones. And if y'all have never seen Ann Zitterkoff's pine cones, they're amazing. And so I invite y'all to come as my guest. And it is so reasonable. You can come as my guest the first time, but for 3 days, it's $360 if you are rooming all by yourself. But if you're sharing with somebody, it's $180. There's not a school out there that you can go and do this, but we do 3 days. And then if you're traveling far, you can stay the night. So if y'all are interested, we'd love to have you come to Texas Teachers. And then if you decide you want to join, we have an application, and it's on Texas Teachers Facebook. We'd love for you to come and join our group. We have a pretty good time. But then last, I wanted to talk about the IPAC convention. And, I was telling Suzanne, I think a lot of us are kind of confused as to how the convention's working, because we're always used to it being at a hotel. We go to our room, then we go downstairs and all that. And the only difference in what they're doing is they just got rid of the expensive hotel, and you get to choose where you want to stay. But they're doing everything at the convention. So in the iPad book is their schedule, and they're doing everything as normal. And I put my notes. Well, I'm not sure where I put my notes, but they have got, I think, 14 vendors. Suzanne, can you confirm that? Y'all got it right around 14 vendors. Is that correct? Oh, she may not be there, but I think there are 14 vendors. And so I think they're going to have a fantastic convention. So you guys need to come and join and be a part. And basically, if you go to see the vendors, which is the main reason we go to the convention, it's really not going to cost you hardly anything except for your hotel and then whatever meals that you're out. So in a way, it's a lot cheaper than going to a big convention and paying for all the expensive meals. But I just wanted to show y'all that. And here's the registration. And here are the teachers that are going to be there. Nancy Benedetti, Bridget Porter. I do not know how to say her name, so I would say it wrong. Sando and Felipe. And then over here, we have Nancy Bergman from Minnesota. And then you've got 3 Texas teachers, which is Janet Nelson, Susan Greathouse, and Susan Thumb, all teaching a 8-hour workshop. So y'all should sign up and get ready to go. So but that is what I wanted to share with everybody. And then I will start with my program. And Suzanne, are you there? Is anybody
Yes,
there?
yes, I'm here. I'm here.
All right. Can you confirm, do y'all have about 14 vendors for the convention?
Yes, and we've added on several more. And then Paola Berry is also a teacher at the convention school, Paola Berry. And we're getting registrations every day, and I appreciate you explaining to them that's the only difference is that it's not at a hotel, and you can.
That's it.
And if you go on like one of those Travelocities or whatever sites, you get a really good rate. And the other hotels were just way too expensive for our budget. So thank you.
You're welcome. I'm excited for y'all's convention. There's lots of exciting things happening. And I like the fact the way y'all did the convention in a sense because it is a little cheaper. So I think y'all are going to do well. It's just getting everybody motivated and getting all of our forms sent in and all of that. So today I am going to teach my glass painting. And I absolutely love this. So y'all got this instruction. So we're going to work on this one. But I'm going to kind of start at the first step of how I kind of start this. I feel funny because there's nobody talking back to me. So, but we are going to start with this. And I have to first apologize. When I sent this in, this worked, but when I went to trace it onto my lantern, it was a little big. So I'm sure you guys all had to shrink it down. So I apologize. I had it a little big. So, but this is the complete lantern that I did. And I have it with me today so we can look at it. But I'm going to start by how I begin. So I'm going to move this out of the way. And I've got everything marked. Step 1, step 2. So here, basically is the lanterns. I buy my lanterns from Hobby Lobby, but I noticed at Home, Home Goods, even the Dollar Tree, if you go, just be careful with your glass. It's much thinner than what's in these, not by a lot, but it is thinner. So you can get these everywhere. So the first thing I do is I start out by taking my lanterns and I take a Stabilo or a Sharpie and I draw out this pattern. So this way I know exactly where my lines are. And then I would take these out, but I've already done that. So we're going to step over to the one that I have traced. All right. So you can't really see this, but you can see where I traced off on this part right here. The other important thing is that you need to mark these, whether it's top, bottom, whatever. So this way, when you are doing it, you can actually see. I'm going to put white here so we can see it. But mark whether it's top or if it's the left-hand side or the right-hand side. And the reason being is that when you are doing a lantern, for instance, like this one, this part right here is much shorter. Much shorter than this part. So if you accidentally turn this upside down, then your leaves are going to be going the opposite direction. So make sure you mark top or bottom when you're doing these. That way it'll help you to make sure you paint the correct direction. All right. So back to this. So once I have it marked out here, there are a couple of ways to put the design on. Sometimes I'll hand draw, sometimes I'll free, depending on what I'm doing, I may just free. These are some ornaments that I did. And so these are just freehand. So you could freehand on your glass. You don't have to trace a pattern, totally up to you. So once I have this done, you can either frost this outer edge or you could leave it and you could go ahead and trace on your pattern. So I either use graphite and I trace it on from the top, or I'll lay it underneath and then I will trace on from the top, kind of like that. This way I have, the gist of what my pattern is. I don't normally always draw all the lines. I did for this today, just so y'all could see. So I just tape my pattern onto the bottom and then trace it. And I'm not used to working on all black and white. I kind of usually use different colors so I can see. I have a white marker as well, and I'm going to pull this up. And sometimes I will use my white Sharpie and trace out my lines. The only thing that I have noticed that when I trace on with a Sharpie or a Stabilo on glass, it will fire off, kind of like alcohol inks. That's basically all they are. However, when I trace on graphite, depending on what I'm doing, the graphite sometimes will cook in on the kill and it'll leave a light brown stroke. And it just depends on the glass. It depends on if it's on top of paint, whatever, is there. Sometimes you'll get a fine line with the graphite. But with the Stabilos and the Sharpies, they all seem to fire out. So just so you know on that part. Okay, so now the third thing I do is this one, I have painted frost on the outside, and then I'll paint the inside. Sometimes I'll paint the inside, and then I'll come do the frost on the outside. But for today's demonstration, I just wanted you to see kind of how I painted the frost on the outside. Now, one of the things that I do is these are those cheap canvas picture frames that you can get from the Dollar Tree, and they're the little craft squares. They're fantastic for handling this glass. So they're just the canvas. And then I just take tape and put on my glass. It just helps me to have something to hold on to. I like this idea. So there's an easy way to do that in a cheap way. And you can also use them for, like, if you're doing scratch, these are great for scratch. You put your ornaments on them, and then you've got something to hold on to when you're doing scratch. So, Suzanne, I just want to make sure, am I talking too fast? Okay, not sure where Suzanne went.
No, you're talking perfectly fine. I have to go back.
All right.
I have to go back into the main program. So.
Oh, okay.
I'm enjoying listening.
Okay, I just didn't want to be talking too fast. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we are going to be doing this. And hopefully, I know Patricia ordered some stuff from me, and she was going to paint along with me. So I'm kind of maybe ahead of you, Patricia, but hopefully not. So I went ahead and got this all traced on. I have the outside painted with the frost, and then I'm going to paint the inside. Now, normally I don't use as heavy a line as this graphite. I usually use a super fine black, but it was easier for you guys to see it. So when I paint it, it's a little bit harder today for you to see. And I'm just going to kind of move the light around. But I'm going to move that around. So I put a heavier line, so it may be a little harder for you to see the white paint. But I'm going to put this over to the side, and I'm going to move this over. Got to make sure I'm in my camera here. Okay. So the way I mix mine is I have just a jar that I only use with this classic glass, and I have distilled turp. Now, you can use regular turp. I like distilled turp because it doesn't have as many oils, but it still has oil in it. So, everybody who says, oh, it just doesn't have oil, that's not true. It still has oils in it. Okay, so when you are using your classic glass, now, if you have Jimbora, there's a couple of different high shine glass enamels out there that you could use, but this is the one I use. And the other thing that you can do is a lot of people ask me, well, can I use just glass enamel? Well, yes, you can. It's just not going to be as shiny as this. This has got a higher shine to it. So when you are painting it, it gives you this really high shine, as to where when you use a more just a plain white enamel or glass enamel covering, it's not going to shine as high. So if you can see on this jar, it doesn't shine as much as this other one. And it's kind of hard to see on the screen, but it just doesn't shine as high as this. So I take a small amount out. You don't need a ton, just a little bit. And then take your distilled turp and you're going to thin it. Now, I have never done raised paste, but at the same time, this is just like doing raised paste. Or if you were doing base for gold and you're thinning it, I thin mine a little bit thinner than I do my base for gold. But now remember, this is for glass, not for porcelain. You can use this on porcelain, but you cannot use base for gold on glass because it will not mature. It does not have enough flux in it to mature at that temperatures, because we're only firing at about 1086. So it's low temperature, 022. Now, you can fire glass at 021 as well, but I use 022. Okay, so this is, it's pretty soupy, not super soupy, but I like mine pretty thin. Now, it dries out fairly fast, so we'll have to come back and add some more to it. Okay, so hopefully everybody's got theirs mixed and ready to go. Okay, so I use a couple of different paintbrushes. I like to use the super thin, the 20-aughts, the Black Dynasty paintbrushes. They are synthetic, but I like the way that it's nice and thin. And I don't know if y'all can see just how nice and thin that is, but super thin. So when I dip into the mix, I load it fairly heavy, trying to get in the camera's view. I load it pretty heavy. And so let's just start on a petal. Now, I like to do the ones that are in the back first and pull in. This way I can put this petal on top of this one. Now, when you're using this, if you, I'm going to get my towel up here. When you're using it, if you press down and you pull it and you make it fairly thin, it is not going to have as much shine when it fires as to when you leave it piled up. And you can kind of see, I know you cannot see the shine, but it kind of dulls it out. And this leaves a heavy shine. So if you go in it and get out, then it will do better. If you make it nice and thin, it's not going to have quite the shine. Now I'm going to flip over to my lantern again. So when doing this, hopefully that looks, there we go. You can see I made these fairly thin as to where these are much thicker. The little dots are thicker because I like, and then I go back and thin it out. So these are pretty thin, and then I use the thick lines on the outside, and then my dots are thick. So that doesn't mean that you have to do it that way. You can do it very heavy on your lines and have just a different technique. So it doesn't matter either way, it's whatever you like. And some of my students always say, oh, I can't get it to work like you. The biggest thing is to practice with it and see what the difference is, because each time you paint, you're going to come up with something that you like better than you did the first time. So, okay. All right, so then I'm going to come right here. We're going to paint that one in. This one is behind. Now I'm doing these fairly thick today. Let's get these that are behind. And, you know, you can paint fairly fast with this too. Okay, so now I'm going to come on top and pull down on top of those others to give it the top. Now, that's with this small brush. Whoops, that's with this small brush. Now, the round brushes, not that one, this one. The round brushes that have the round tips, they work even better. Load them, and then you can push down and lift, and it gives you even a different texture when you paint with them. I'm trying to see, can you guys see that? There we go. All right, so I'm going to finish painting a few of these, and then I'm going to show you. Okay, so now once I get those painted, okay, there it is. Okay, so then once I get some of those painted, I like to come back through here and pull in a little bit of light. Y'all can kind of see this working on a camera and working backwards. You can kind of bring some light out of your petals. And then wipe each time that you scratch and you pull it, make sure you wipe that off so you don't drag it onto the others. All right. Hopefully y'all can see that. Looks kind of messy, but we'll go over here to this one. So you can kind of see where I've brought in and kind of scratched all the way around that flower. Now, once I've got all of those done, again, I take and make those small lines and just pull and do those centers. Okay. And then again, put a little highlight in it. Now, I use my stylus for doing the little dots up here at the top. And on my stylus, I have two different sizes. I have the small tip and I have the big tip. I'm trying to make it to where y'all can see this, but I keep getting myself confused. So I like the bigger tops, but these little ones are really nice as well. And they make great dots. Now, one of the things when you are making dots is you need to remember that when you load and you do one dot, you come and do a second dot, a third dot, a fourth dot. They get smaller in size. If you want them all to match, you need to reload each time. That way they're all the same. So if you ever do dots and they're not the same, it's because sometimes we just continue to dot, hoping that we're going to get the same size. But they get smaller and smaller. So make sure you go back in it and do them, load for each time. That way they're the same. Now, you can also use the stylus, kind of dot it down and pull. And you can pull those. Or if you don't have one of these brushes, they are amazing because they're a 20-aught and they are fantastic to do designs with. So I highly recommend them. I love these brushes. Okay, so back to this. So then on these lines, we're just going to pull. And then if you want to make your dots with your brush, you can always make the dots with your brush. Now, I like using my wipeout so that I can keep some of my lines thin if I get them a little too big. Now, one of the things that I always do is I come through here and I separate my centers from my flower when I am carving out these. And I'm going to get to this one so I can show you. So I kind of carve this out and kind of separate them. It just kind of gives it that, hey, I'm right down in that center. And then the same thing, yes, sometimes I'll come through here and wipe out here to give it a little bit of light and style. And then across here, sometimes I'll wipe out this right here. Let's see. Oh, and then I put cartouches on them. I try to keep these like underneath. And so I will always start back here and draw my center lines. So this way you got the thickest at the bottom and pull my lines thin coming up. Let's see here. What else do I do? I think that's basically all I do. Same thing now when I'm doing other flowers. Sometimes I will make the solid lines here and then I'll just kind of drag my lines and then I'll come back up and clean them. That's kind of what I've done on these roses. And this is what they call a mudding technique. And so if you look at Margaret Clark, she started this mudding, and that's kind of the style that I did on these lanterns was, kind of dig out. I don't use the mudding, of course, because it fires at 05, 06, so it would never work on these lanterns. But the technique is really very classy on these. Same thing here. Now, I did not do as much mudding technique on these. I just kind of painted them solid. Came in here and just did these little cute little curved lines. This one is a Helen Humes design, and I just fell in love with it. And I put these little roses on here, did the mudding technique, and then came through and did all the lines. And one of the things that I always say is when you're doing these lines, if you can put you some dots on both ends, and that way you can kind of keep up with your cross lines without having to draw a straight line across. It makes it a little bit easier, and it does look better when they are more straight and together. None of us are perfect, but and you can also see in this, I also frosted the top of these. You don't have to. You could leave it open, but I like to frost it. I think it looks cooler. And then back to the design we're doing. Now, all the lanterns, like I said, these all come from Hobby Lobby. And remember, they're always 40 or 50% off. And I'm going to open this up. Does anybody have questions on what I've done before I move on to some other stuff.
If you'd like to ask Donna a question, unmute yourself.
Donna, is there any time that you can put the product on too thick?
No, and let's talk about that. This is what I love about doing this. And I'm going to turn this kind of sideways. And this way you can see right here on this big glob. If you look at my wipeout tool, see how thick that is? It's extremely thick. And so when you figure, you know, it's about that high, that's a huge amount. So no, and it does not pop off. Okay, so you know, sometimes it really gives you a nice style when you have it really nice and thick. So I like to pop it up there. I like that height, and it will naturally do that the way that it is made. So no, pop it on there, get you a little thickness.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And it's nice to actually see your face. I'm always thrilled to see who I've been working with and talking to.
Same here, Donna.
So since I'm going to move on, since you were the only one that asked questions, this is the mudding technique. And so if you look at Margaret Clark, she has some fantastic mudding designs. And then, of course, I added my own, you know, little extras to it. But I want to flip this over. And this is what they call cookie design. So if you go look at gingerbread cookies or just regular old cookies and how they design them and how they paint them, this is a cookie design. And there are some marvelous cookie designs out there that are fantastic. I'm digging for one. So these are some cookies. Aren't these adorable patterns? And, you know, this is kind of, I mean, you can do so many different designs. But if you go look up cookies, I just love the way the lace patterns are done. And, you know, it's all, there's so many things you can do with it. And again, this is a mudding technique. This is Margaret Clark. But see how these leaves are done? And, you know, all of this can be wiped out. You don't have to do it with a piping, you know, bag or a pipette. And I've tried it with the piping tool. I just find it's much easier to do with the brush. Now, I'm going to show you some other patterns. Okay, that one. This one is an old 1981 design that we found out of a toll book. And all you need is just that outside. And that's kind of the pattern that I've done here on these. I just think they're fun to do. All right, so let's see. So the other day I was looking online and I found this, and I thought these are cutouts that they use on cards to put something behind them. But you could use the same pattern and do the white and put it on there. I think that's a really fun thing to do. Now, rose mauling. I don't know if anybody has looked at rose mauling before, but this is rose mauling. And in rose mauling, you can come up with all kinds of roses and different tulips and daisies. And it's just different folk art. Let's see here. And then, you know, other patterns that you can use are different things like this. Look at these little flowers. And these would be so simple to make. And then the little cartouches, you know, the designs like that. Bows are super fun to do. Now here, you can paint with your regular China paints onto glass and then come on the outside and put this on the outside. And I'm going to bring up another couple more pieces and show y'all. Okay, so here is rose mulling. Not the best book, but it has some great patterns. So let me flip to them. Now, if you look at these, you can use all of these styles to make different roses. Look at these roses. Kind of a sunflower look, a tulip. But then over here, look at all the different ways that you can make roses. And that's just, you can do it with your brush or you can do it with your stylus. And so it makes all these different roses. Online, Becky's Enameling, she does some fantastic little roses. And I'm going to show y'all, here's kind of the roses that I do. They're a lot like Becky's Enameling. I'm trying to get that to where y'all can see it. But, you know, you can do almost anything. So here's just some different roses. Hopefully y'all can see that. But you can just bring different styles together. And then I always say, if all else fails, put some dots on it. Now, I want to show y'all this ornament. So I just took a wide brush and did the pulling of these little cartouches here. And then this right here, let me get underneath there, is the crystal glass. And so I put that crystal glass on with glue. I don't use a special, you know, there's a couple of different glues out there that you can use, but I just use regular Elmer's glue. And I always work in one small area. And then I went and bought me some salt shakers and I put my crystal glass in it. And then I sprinkle it onto my glue. And then I'll move to another area, put my glue on, and then I'll sprinkle it on. But here you can see, if all else fails, add some dots. I love my dots. So here's another one. Now, this color that's on this ornament is Carmine Purple from Nancy Bergman. And so if you have any kind of glass, it doesn't matter what it is. I mean, this, see, it's just a little candy jar. So this has normal luster on it, and it's pink. But you can take regular luster, not glass luster, but regular luster, and paint it onto glass ornaments or any other kind of glass and turn your color. So if you wanted to take these lanterns and you want your glass to be carmine purple, you can paint that luster on there and then sponge it, smooth it out, and then fire it. Now, if you want black, this is black luster, it takes at least 2 coats. Now, it'll look kind of streaky, but it's really, when you fire it, it's going to be perfectly fine. You don't have to worry about the luster. Now, the only luster I've had trouble with is blue violet. And I think that's because it's in the gold base and I don't think it matured. So if you're going to do pinks and purples, well, pinks I've not had any problems with, but purples, you might want to use glass purple luster. It might do better. On this one, I just painted the center of it. And you can see the rose mulling that I did on these. It's almost that same design, the tulips. And, you know, I just pulled them and then, you know, wiped out to kind of correct it, you know, as to how I want it to be more perfect. And then on the bottom, I put the glass. And up here at the top, I put the glass. And of course, I'm a bow tire. I did parties and events. I did lots of weddings, so I'm huge on bows, as you can tell. But this is just a glass jar, and I went through and I just painted it, and then I put this all down it. So, I mean, you're unlimited. Look at, you know, the designs that, I'm trying to get underneath there. you can do all kinds of designs on it. So now I'm going to pull up some tiles. Now, I put these were in the iPad newsletter. And so if y'all go back to the newsletter, you can see them. But these are a good way to make roses. This is a tulip, some daisies, some little dots that you could do, the little bird, a bush, a blossom, some leaves. And on these leaves, I'm gonna pull up this brush, this little one. And so when you're doing leaves, if you load that brush, I'm gonna come right up here, and you just kind of wiggle that brush and pull up. Look at that perfect petal. I could sit all day long and just make little petals. But this is why I love these little synthetic, super long. This is a 20-aught, but they make great little leaves. You can see even the butterfly, those are all just little leaf patterns. Then over here are some more different roses and just some cartouches. So, you're kind of unlimited as to what you're going to put on there. And I like to make tiles, and then I have something sitting in front of me so I can come up with some great ideas on what to add to it when I'm clueless. Like, hey, I need something here. Okay, so now how I actually got into painting all this glass was from a lady named Pam Early. And Pam does Santa lanterns. And so I'm going to hold this up on my screen so y'all can see it better. But this is covering white enamel on the lanterns. And I have learned that if you do 2 coats and then paint on top of it, it's much darker. So now on the ends, and I'll see if I can get them to show. On the ends, I painted it, and then I went back with the classy glass and I highlighted it with the heavy white for my snow. Same thing on this one. I used it as my snow. I'm trying to get it there. There we go. And then that way I've got another purpose for it. Then on the back side, I did painting of ornaments, and then I used the classy glass to emphasize the ornaments, and I'll turn it up this way. And so it just really gave me a great way to highlight that whole entire piece. So you can use on any glass, you can use your normal palette. The only colors you're going to have trouble with are your purples and your pinks because they're gold-based. So they have a hard time maturing at 022. So if you're going to use those colors, you might test them beforehand. And if not, just grab you your glass paints and purples or pinks, and that way you can use them. Now, this is much darker than the other lantern. And I think it's because I put on 2 coats, and this is my first firing down here. Up here is my second firing, and I'm going to put it up to my camera so y'all can see it. So if you want to do a huge lamp from Hobby Lobby on glass, it makes fantastic pieces. And then they have the nice frames to go with them. So that's another way that you can paint on glass. So now that I've told y'all and got you to where you'll go out and buy you some glass, I want to explain something. I bought these little teapots, and they are actually blue, if you can see the color. The thing is that this glass is more of what they call a it's a luster, but not a luster like we use. It's a very low fire. And sometimes you'll see like these birds hanging and they'll have different colors on them. The problem is when you fire them, that color fires off. So you want to fire these first before you ever begin painting on them. And you want to get whatever that color is off of them. These will actually turn clear, and so will these. But then on this one, I went back and I put a blue violet luster on it, and not a glass. This is a regular luster, and it fired just fine. And then I painted it, and then I'll hang it and put it in my windows. So, there's glass everywhere. And so you're not limited to just one piece of glass to paint on. You can do many different ones. But just remember, if it is clear glass, and you're fine. If it's not, you need to fire it first and get whatever that color is that's on them off. Okay, now let's see. I think I had something else to show y'all. And here is one of the birds, and it's got a rosy red luster that I put on it. And so, these are fun to paint on. Just make sure you fire them first. Doing ornaments whenever you do them. So I will put a covering on them. I will cut out, say, I put a heart on this one. I buy these little terracotta pots, and see the little hole on there? You need ventilation. So if you are going to paint on ornaments or birds, trying to get into my camera, whatever you're going to do, and you need something to hold on to, you've got to keep some ventilation. On the birds, you're okay if you cover that hole. However, on an ornament, this will all turn black in the kill. So this is where you want to glue these on, and you want to leave that hole. Can y'all see that hole in there? I left that with the ventilation. Now, I have never found any terracotta pot that's perfectly smooth, that's going to lay totally flat in any of my kills. But this way, when I set it down like this in my kill, there's still air that's going to get up underneath this, and it will allow airflow into this ornament, and it will not burn. Now, the way I do this, let me grab something real quick. Let's see if I can get, hey, Kinsley. Oh, never mind. Okay, so I've got my glue gun, and I am like a bull in a china closet, and I try to explain this to everybody. So you can do Elmer's glue. I will have it ripped off in 30 seconds. It just doesn't work for me. So I always try to make sure that my ornaments can sit on these and be perfectly level without falling off, because you don't want them to fall off in your kill, but sometimes it happens. So I make sure that they will stay on there. I put a little bit of glue around that hole. I stick on my ornament, and I leave that hole exposed. Let's see here. Let me get that to where I can look in there. Okay, so see how that hole is still open, and you can see it in the little window. I don't have it, where I can't get airflow into it. Then I go around this outer edge right here, and I glue that pretty good, because I am like a bull in a china closet. And I glue around that outer edge, and that allows me to handle this ornament. So once it dries, I can actually handle that ornament and paint on it. Otherwise, it'll be sitting in my hands. And then I can take this and I can put it straight into my kiln once I've got it, painted and done. The glue will totally burn off, so you're good on that. The only thing is I always vent my garage, 6-8 inches, because the hot glue, it does stink when it's melting, and you don't want all those fumes in. So I raise my garage. That's where I fire. If you fire in your house, get it in your garage. You don't need to fire in your house. But just glue it on there, and then you can, decorate it and then get it ready to fire. But that's how I do my ornaments. And I even will stick, if I'm doing birds, I'll glue birds onto my terracotta pots. Now, when you fire them in your kiln, you do want to put a little space between the two. I'm on my regular camera here where you can see me, but I always spread them apart so that if this one falls off, I'll back that up. So if this one falls off, then there's a space between them, because if they fall and touch, they're together. That's the only part. Now on these ornaments, my rule, I only fire them 4 times. If I have to fire them 5 times, I will. But I always am afraid of this thin glass. I'm afraid that it's just going to start breaking down. I'm probably totally wrong, but in my head, that is what I believe. Now, the glass on these lanterns is thicker, so it does not bother me to do that. Okay, so any questions on the ornaments? No? Okay, so on the lanterns, one of the things that I want to show you is that glass is pretty thin. So you've got, if this glass were to break on you, you can go out to the Dollar Tree, get you a picture frame, and get a glass cutter, and you can cut your own piece of glass to replace the one that broke. Now, you're not limited to just painting lanterns. These I did. I thought they were super fun. But these are just cheap $1.50 lantern or $1.25 at the Dollar Tree. And then we painted them. And then we just glued the little metal trinkets that you can get on Amazon on these. Dee Blevins got me into soldering. And so I have all these little trinkets. So these were great and fun to do. And here is another one we did, and it's like the beehive comb, and then we painted these. And this is just on a cheap $1.25 picture frame. So glass is everywhere. You're not limited to painting ornaments or lanterns there's tons of glass. Try it and see. Even the $3 lanterns that Dollar Tree has, they're cheap. The glass is much thinner. Just make sure that you lay it flat in your kiln. Never set it up because it'll warp. Let's see. Yes, let's talk about firing these glass panels. Make sure that when you're firing them, that you lay them, and I'm in my camera on my computer. Make sure you lay these flat in your kiln. You don't have to worry about kiln wash because you are not firing where this glass is going to slump. Glass will not start slumping until about 018. So as long as you lay these flat in your kiln, they'll be fine. If you fire your kiln at 018 to 015 and you've got this glass in there, it will melt and permanently stick to your shelf. So make sure that you fire these at 022, nothing higher. But you just lay it down flat and fire it. Now, Ann Zitterhoff did a piece, and she put frost on the front side and then painted her image on the back side. And it was beautiful because she put a candle in it and you could see it through the frost and you could see that image. And it was really, really pretty. Back when my mother was painting in the 70s, they used to take cutting boards that had the ruffle on one side, and they would paint the back image on those. And that's another piece of glass. You can reverse a rose or whatever and use cutting boards. So, go get you some glass today and start painting. So does anybody have any other questions? Did we enjoy the class?
Yes, it was wonderful. Thank you,
Oh,
Donna.
thank you. Thank you. And it's very nice to meet you. Susan and Suzanne, any questions from you, ma'am?
You did a fabulous job and I enjoyed it and I learned so very, very much.
Thank you.
I have unmuted everyone. So if you have a question for Donna, and give a shout out for the enthusiasm that we had. It was a great day.
Yes, and everybody sign up. Let's do the iPad convention, WOCP, Texas teachers. Come join our group. You do not have to be a teacher. We will teach you to become a teacher.
Yes, yes, yes. That's my theme this summer. Paint, paint, paint.
Paint, paint, paint.
Again, thank you so much. And this was.
You have a question, Patricia?
Patricia, do you have a question?
I do, real quick, Suzanne. It just dawned on me, when we clean our brushes, we're cleaning it in the distilled turpentine, correct?
In the distilled turp, yes. I keep everything with this. I use distilled turp. Mineral spirits would work to clean your brushes, but the distilled turp it gets it all out and cleans it.
Okay, we will have this posted on the iPad Museum YouTube channel in just a few minutes, and then it will be uploaded to our website, ipadinc.org, where we have all of our wonderful Zoom lessons in a folder. Just open it up and enjoy coming back and visiting this and painting. Thank you all.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you for attending today. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank y'all.